The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program, and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello, welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it's Monday.
And it's going to be another day. Another week.
Another day in paradise.
Yeah, well, you know, it's very interesting because over the weekend on Saturday, an open meeting law complaint was filed by Patrick Higgins, and I filed one on the school committee last week. Now, under the law, the executive body has the right and should deal with these complaints as a body prior to responding to them. And as a matter of fact, on the open meeting law complaint that was filed in October, Attorney Bruce Assad requested an extension in order to meet in executive session to discuss that complaint. Well, they're meeting tonight, and that open meeting law complaints from both Patrick Higgins and myself are on the executive session. But Attorney Bruce Assad replied on December 9th, the day before the agenda was even published. Do we have Svengali in there and he knows what's going on, or what's happening? Because I got the response and I started laughing. Their defense is that Mr. Higgins and myself did not attempt to contact the mayor to advise him that the agenda was in violation. Interestingly enough, though,
it's your job.
Yeah, it's my job now.
See, another job. There's another hat for you to wear. The town crier. You have to go and tell them what their job is.
Well, if I live
they
in
can't
Tiverton, I get
schedule
paid
a
for it.
meeting properly. Okay, all right.
And the funny thing is, though, if you call Government Center, the mayor's office, 508-324-2630, 2600, excuse me, 2600. You get a voicemail. And that's been going on for some time now.
Since the election?
I believe so. and you know, it gets to be very interesting because, you know, when you attempt to notify them, nobody wants it. Now, in November, when we attempted to serve the complaint on the school committee, the mayor was not in the building at the time. Corporate counsel was not in the building at the time. Now, when you're to receive a complaint for an open meeting law violation, it must be served on the committee. Now, the mayor is the chairman and corporate counsel is corporate counsel. He's not the committee. So if the mayor's not in the building, who do you serve it on? You serve it on the vice chairman, Mark Costa. And
well, I mean, yeah, but he doesn't, he's not in the building. I mean, what does he do, wait around for complaints? I mean,
No. What I'm talking, the complaint was brought to the school committee meeting to be served on.
To the school, school, yeah.
So the mayor's not there, okay? Corporate counsel's not there. Mark Costa said, I'm not taking any service.
Well, he has to. He's obligated by law.
He's obligated by law, but he refused to accept the service. He says, you'll wait until corporate counsel's here. Usually he's here earlier than this, or the mayor's here. So you elect this man, he gets elected to vice chairman, and he doesn't do his job. Hey, it's Fall River. So
well, the law is a sliding. You know, it's. I have to go back to our incumbent mayor when he talked about one law that they said, well, we don't have to. You know, that law doesn't. We're not going to apply. That law doesn't apply to us, or something along that vein. In other words, listen. You know, even though I'm a lawyer and I'm sworn to uphold the law, but I'm gonna, when it suits me as a politician, we ignore the law, and they do it all the time. I mean, you know, the fact is that, and I understand it. Probably they'd say they'll say, well, you know, Bruce Assad responded before we even looked at the complaint, and we are in fact the school committee. But he's our attorney, and we would have turned it over to him anyway. But that's not an excuse. The fact is, it was filed. They don't work for him. he works for them. And even though, right, he is the attorney, and if there's a legal response to a legal complaint, it's going to be him that fundamentally drafts the complaint. But the way it's supposed to work is that he is a source of information and input, and he will draft it. But the school committee is an elected body that is supposed to have the obligation of dealing with these things. It's just like when we negotiated contracts, and we had a lawyer. Now, Neil Rossman is one of the top lawyers in the country when it comes to labor relations and things like that. But he still worked for us. We hired him. We paid him. We didn't just defer to Neil. We would sit down and we would review all our proposals with him. He would then maybe tune up the writing, or he would offer suggestions. But the reality was, he was fully aware that he worked for us, and if he made a suggestion that we didn't like, he also knew that even though he would go on record as saying, I think maybe it should be the other way, he was in fact obligated to do what we told him. When it came to law, or legal opinions, that's what he got paid to do. He drafted the opinions, and he dealt with the legal ramifications. But there's a process and there's a protocol, and the problem is that protocol is never followed in Fall River. It's kind of like parliamentary procedure. It's like we only use parliamentary procedure in a political meeting when it serves our benefit. If it doesn't serve our benefit, we just, the hell with it. A non-debatable motion, we'll debate it for 3 hours. Everybody gets to talk. Oh, a motion that can't, that's it. A motion to table, motion to adjourn, and then the meeting goes on for 2.5 more hours, both of which have to be voted on immediately. But I don't think anybody, how many points of order have ever been called in a city council meeting?
None.
None. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But yet, if you go to any other body's conventions, and somebody violates a parliamentary law, a rule, you will have 50 people run into a microphone screaming, "Point of order! Point of order!" We're supposed to be voting on the amendment as amended before we vote on the amended. And it's like because everybody there, at conventions are normally, presidents or chairmen, and they have to run their meetings by the rules, and everybody knows what the rules of order are. And if they're violated, people are going to call you on it. But in the city council meeting, it's like nobody calls them because they're the worst. They have to monitor themselves. There's no parliamentarian, and it's kind of like a free-for-all. Whatever they decide to do that night, that's what they do. And it's not only city council, school committee, and
Every
that's
board,
the problem.
every board.
I mean, so much for procedure and protocol.
Now that you bring up parliamentary procedure, the Charter Commission, I'm looking for a good name for them because it just doesn't seem right.
How about the Charter Commission? That's what they are.
But
seems appropriate to me.
They, I made a comment over the weekend in my column that the leadership so far isn't flexing any muscle at all. They're just kind of like trying not to tick anyone off. And one of the things that they did was they adopted, again, Cushing's rules of order, which you and I both know is nothing but a legislative, form to get through what they want to get through and do what they want. But they actually voted to have a parliamentarian come in and teach a class on parliamentary procedure to the Charter Commission. I said, hey, Mike, do me a favor. Invite the incoming city councilors and the remaining, and the incoming school committee members and the remaining, so that they'll understand what parliamentary procedure is. Because they need it as well.
Yeah, and what a lot of people don't realize is, fundamentally the rules of order that are used the most are Roberts, and then you've got Atwood's, which is basically Roberts toned down a little bit, not quite as technical, because it's used by organizations that are a little bit more informal, but the rules and priorities of motions and things are the same. Cushing's rules of order were drafted specifically for political bodies, which means that they're rules that really aren't rules. Cushing's allows a lot of latitude, and it's nowhere near as strict. There's a lot of things in Cushing's that's why you don't see Cushing's used anywhere. I mean, in any other body outside the body politic, because those rules of order, they're hiring a parliamentarian to come in to tell them that, under Cushing's, you can do just about anything you want, because Cushing's was made for people like you, politicians who are full of crap, So, because if you actually go to a regular meeting where other people are there, you need rules, because in order to maintain order, you have to have rules of order, because that's what they technically are. Parliamentary procedure are the rules of order in order to run a meeting and allow everybody to get their say and allow things to go in a standardized manner. But political bodies, they know. I mean, you're not allowed to filibuster in any other place except the political body. I mean, how absurd is it that a senator can get up and read a novel to filibuster? And it's like, the body politic is incredible, and I blame us, the voters in this country. We've allowed them to become totally out of control, to totally create their own monarchy, and on a local, state, and federal level. And look what we've got now. Now we've got everybody complaining about Donald Trump because Donald Trump is not acting like a politician. And some people dislike him, and whether you like him or dislike him, one of the reasons he's showing the popularity he is that people are sick and tired of politicians and their BS. And he's saying what a lot of people feel, and whether he's right or wrong really isn't, well, it is relevant really, because he is kind of he's kind of the microcosm of the problem here. We have people who act purely on emotion. They have some stuff, they have some issues, and they have these positions, but they're not based in anything that's substantial. Like some of his statements are absurd, but many people feel the same way. And why do they? Because they don't understand that some of these things are really not doable. You can't violate the Constitution of the United States. I mean, you can try, but somebody's going to ultimately call you on it. And this is the thing. It's about the voter educating themselves, but they're upset, and I don't blame them. And people are upset as they are upset in Fall River, because now, is it tonight's meeting? You're on the agenda?
Tonight is the meeting.
That the Save Meg Mayo-Brown, the greatest educator, since Socrates or Plato.
Exactly.
And
it's interesting because she was, offered the position in Barnstable by a resounding 3-2 vote. And I said, the three that voted for her, listened to the propaganda from Rob Mellion, Nick Christ, and Sam Sutter, and all the Melissa Panchley, and because Paul Hart and Bob Maynard couldn't generate that propaganda, and Mark Costa. But the two people that voted against her because they looked at the record. They looked at the data, the real numbers, okay? The fact that even your school, your premier school, which was the nation model for school improvement, to take a level 4 school and make it a level 1 school, the Matthew J. Cuss Middle School was a level 1 school. Even that school did so well, it came in level 2. And people are still saying, oh, well, that's a good outcome. It's still level 2. No, it's not. If you're always willing to accept for second best, guess what? You will never be the best. And we cannot do this. We have proven over and over and over again with this school superintendent that her improvement plans are not sustainable. Because when you move failing students from a failing school into a level 1 school, the failing school gets the students from the level 1 school moved back to there. Guess what? The level 4 becomes a level 1, and the level 1 becomes a level 4. We can't move the problem, we've got to solve the problem. And the improvement plan that this city has used over and over and over again is not sustainable. And they don't like the fact that I and you and others keep calling you out on it. And guess what? Meg, when the announcement came that Barnstable offered you the job, the first song I played was, "I've packed my bags, I'm ready to go," leaving on a jet plane. And another song that was very good was the theme song to The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy movie, which was called "So Long and Thanks for All the Fish." Listen to both of them, Meg. Maybe you'll like them.
Well, but the reality is that, is this Barnstable, is this really a ploy to get not only a new contract but a pay raise?
Oh, I agree.
I mean,
I said that.
I think this is an orchestrated. Now we've got everybody saying, she's the second coming, and we have to keep her here, and she's going to be paid more in Barnstable, so we have to pay her at least as much as she's getting in Barnstable, maybe more.
Right.
And so is this really orchestrated for these people to give her another pay raise, in spite of the fact that she didn't get her PhD, and her PhD was paid for, and she got a pay raise predicated on the fact that she getting a PhD. And she didn't get it. She's out of the program as far as we know. Secondly, we see a school system that is nothing more than a facade, because what they do, as you said, is they move the students around. There's no real progress in our school system. If you've got an underperforming school, they close it or they move students, and they move the student population around to elevate that school. And then what they do when they elevate that school by moving in higher achieving students, they have to give these underachieving students a place to stay, and that lowers the other school. This is what happened to Cuss. And then they use these ridiculous figures like, well, we're performing better than 41%. Well, 41% less than 50%. Which means that there's 59% that's performing better than you are. What academic course have you ever taken where 41 was a passing grade? I don't know about you, but I never took an examination that 41 was passing.
Hey, Chip, if somebody got 41% on the firefighter's exam, they'd be chief, right?
Yeah, they wouldn't even be on the list, because the passing grade on civil service exams is 70.
Right. So
and as it used to be in most schools.
Right.
Okay. And except for 1 year, many years ago, the state, in order to allow, when there was a big move about the bringing on other ethnic groups and
affirmative action.
Affirmative action, yeah, that was I had a mental block, because actually Fall River wasn't, at that time, Fall River wasn't included under that law, because we had such a low percentage of minority groups in the city that the Fall River Fire Department was never exposed to minority hiring. And because of minority hiring, the state actually lowered the score of the entrance for fire and police to 35.
Wow.
35 for 1 year, in order to encourage minorities, because they didn't have enough minorities passing at 70. And then what they did was they had quota hiring. And there are some departments like Boston that there are people who were still upset, 20 years later or 25 years later, over what ultimately, at least in my opinion, is reverse discrimination. I don't care what color or religion you are. If you can beat me on an exam, well, you deserve the job before I do.
Yeah.
And that's it. But when you begin to hire people with 40s and 38s over people with 100 or 99 on an exam, There's something wrong with that picture. And that's what happened in Boston. And I personally know people whose sons and brothers and cousins never got on a job because of that quota hiring. And they stayed on a list and weren't hired with 99s and 100s while people with marks in the 30s were being hired. Some people will say, well, you know, that's just a redress of past. But I don't believe it. I believe that everybody should get a good education, and everybody should be able to compete, and everybody should have a level playing field. And, you know, as I said, if you can beat me on an exam, well, then you deserve it. But if you tell somebody they can get half the score I do, or less than half, and then they get a job before me, I've got an issue with that. And you know, it was a very, very trying time in the fire service and in the police departments, in those communities that had to deal with the affirmative action and quota hiring, because there was a lot of acrimony there, and to me, it's justifiable, because I would not be a happy camper if I got 100 or a 99 on an exam, and they gave somebody the job that got, you know, got a 34, got a 36. So, you know, this is what happens. This is when government intervention begins to, you know, not, you know, rather than raising the, you know, the bar and give, you know, even if you had said, okay, spend the money to give them preparatory courses to take the exam, offer them, you know, like you do with any students, tutoring and stuff like that, but bring them up to a level, because we don't want people, you know, it's like medical school. You know, what are you going to do? Lower the requirement to medical school so you have, you know, you get people being admitted to medical school that aren't really, you know, I hate to say it, but bright enough to be doctors. I mean, in any color. You know, I don't want somebody, because what do? Because when you graduate from medical school, whether you graduated with at the bottom of your class, at the top of your class, you know what they call you? Doctor.
Yep.
And nobody knows.
You know, the thing about the whole picture that we have here is that the people don't learn. You, the voter, don't learn. You don't. And you have now Meg Mayo-Brown coming back to the school committee tonight to discuss a contract. She has an offer for a job. The people of Fall River, the majority of people in Fall River, the majority of people who have children in the school system, parents, want her gone. What part of that message does not get across to the school committee? Why? Because Sam Sutter turned around and said, I have unfinished business. One of that being Meg Mayo-Brown's contract. Guess what? The people don't care what your unfinished business is, Mr. Mayor. The people don't want Meg Mayo-Brown. I personally don't have a child in the school system anymore. Okay? And when she worked in the school system, when I had a child in the school system, she was useless then. She's still useless. She does not meet with parents. She does everything to avoid them. When there are serious issues, she handles the buck off to somebody else. We can't do that. You're the superintendent of schools. People want to talk to you, not to some underling. And if you're unwilling to meet with the parents, and you are unwilling to listen seriously to their concerns, then what should happen to you is what happened to Mayor Sutter. Bye-bye. I mean, is that, you know, asking for too much?
No.
Are the people asking for too much?
No, but that's the problem. The people aren't asking enough, and that's, you're right. It's the fault of you know, we allow ourselves to be governed, and the representation that government gives us is directly proportional to how much we hold them accountable. And we see it every day. We see it every day with our government. I mean, we can go on forever about the government's abuse of the people, but the people allow this to happen. This is why Trump has begun to make the surge. The fact is, look, we've said it before on his show. How can anybody rationalize the fact that in the United States, that we pay more for drugs made in the United States than any other place on the planet Earth? How can we justify that? We know why. The pharmaceutical companies are, you know, a $300 billion a year business or better. They pay off every doctor, every politician. So the reality is, we should be getting drugs at the cheapest rate because this is where they're manufactured. Yet, if you go across the border to Canada, you go across the border to Mexico, if you're in Australia, England, any other place on this planet, and you buy an American drug, it will be cheaper.
Much cheaper.
Much cheaper.
Much cheaper.
Much cheaper, exactly.
But this is the people. They don't say anything.
But people allow this.
Right.
And they'll elect their congressman, even though this guy's voting in favor of allowing this to happen. As a man once said, you know, Mexico's got their drug cartels and we've got ours. It's the pharmaceutical industry. But that's not the only abuse of the people. You know, I mean, we see it every day when we have our own politicians say, well, you elect me, then I get to do whatever I want.
Exactly. And that's
no,
what they all
you
say.
Don't.
And that's what they all say. And, you know, I was talking last night with an elected official, and I'm going to leave them nameless, and I had proposed something. And they said, oh, well, the problem is that while I agree that we should do that, the people that are on this will not agree to it. I said, but this is what the people want. It doesn't matter what they want. It's what they want. I said, no. I said, Article 5, they're violating law. He says, no, I agree with you. But they don't care. Every elected official in this city does not care. I don't care. You can buy the Linda Pereira bull that for 20 years I've done everything good for the city. Prove it. Show me one. Show me one. Okay? I don't want to hear it anymore. If you are not going to listen to what the voter says, if you are not going to listen to what they ask, if you are not going to do what they demand of you, you don't deserve the office and you should resign. And I don't care whether you're mayor, city councilor, school committeeman, or dog catcher. Your job is to do what we tell you. And if you can't do it, you shouldn't be there.
But let's look at it. You know, Article 5 of Part 1 of the Massachusetts State Constitution says they are all times answerable to us. But in reality, people use that to relieve themselves of that burden. They go, okay, they're answerable to us, but we elect them, so what can we do now? They're in. Well, the problem is they are only answerable to us if we make them answerable to us.
That's right.
We have to do, and look, I got a pat Fall River on the back. Pat. Good. You know, this Wednesday we'll be celebrating the first anniversary, and we were the first city to recall, you know, a sitting mayor and oust them. We've ousted another mayor. We've put some new people in the council. Are they perfect? I don't know. We got to give them a chance to see what they do. So far,
they haven't done much.
It hasn't looked good. I mean, the precursor to their taking office has not been really good on all levels. But the fact is, we have to wait and see what they actually now begin to govern. But the fact is that, look, we are the ultimate authority. And if we don't exercise our right and stay angry, and if they don't do what we tell them, pack your bags, then they'll start
and leave
listening.
on that jet plane.
Stay angry.
Stay angry, and we'll see you on Wednesday for the 1-year anniversary of the first Fall River recall.
That's right.
Have a great day.
Whippy.